those people who are going to watch it later.
Yeah.
All right. So Brand X Kids Camps. The first thing I want to say about this is I think most everybody I've spoken to thinks about the programming for the camp first, which makes a lot of sense because we're trainers and that's what we do every day. And we imagine that that's the meat of it. And it is in a big way. But what we've found is that a lot of people don't think about all the other logistics and all the other things that knit together to support the programming to make it work for the outcomes that you want. So we did a deep dive on what are all the details and the things that we need to look at to make the camps really successful. And I thought the best way to sort of give a framework to that is to think about the prepare, practice, play model. And that what we're going to talk about is prepare, practice. And then the play is the actual camp when you're moving and things are going, right? So the prepare, practice part is the part we need to dig into right now to make sure that that camp is successful. So there are four major areas here, and each one, there's just a lot of detail. I'm going to try and talk through it. Feel free, after we go through each of these columns, stop me, we'll have little discussions. You can ask questions because there's just a lot here. But we have these four areas. The last one is surveys. And I did surveys with Brand X training centers that have run very successful camps. And I have 3 models and what they look like. And we'll talk about that at the end because it's going to speak to everything we talked about before, I think, but give you some ideas on what really works on the ground at Brand X training centers.
Just that we're going to mostly cover kids, and at the end we're going to talk about the difference between kids and preteens and teens, and why camps are going to be different, and what we should be looking for with the preteens and teens. But a lot of this logistic stuff and the things you have to think through come out of the kids thing. That's great, and we can apply it. But mostly we're going to end up here, and then we will talk about the preteens and teens briefly at the end. We're back to your regularly scheduled seminar. Webinar.
So starting with logistics, obviously, where exactly are you going to have this? What is the space usage plan? Is there anything else going on next to you? Do you have the right amount of space? And now, obviously, that's going to be connected to how many people are coming. So a lot of these things are interconnected, right? Also, programming will affect location. Do I need to be near a rig? Do I need to be on a field? All of those things will connect at some point. But just basically start with, where do I think most of this camp is going to occur? And what does the space look like? And what do I need to think about? A couple stories there. We ran events. We ran a few camps. And we also ran many, many events. And we had, during one event where there was filming involved, there was a fire at our neighbor's suite. And I mean, sirens going off, the whole 9 yards. So another time it was a seminar across the street in what we thought was a dirt field. Somebody decided to have a wedding reception, a very loud musical mariachis. I mean, it was happy, but we couldn't hear anything at our seminar because there was a loud party next door. So look around once you define where it's going to be and think about a plan B. What might, weird stuff happens, have a plan B just in case. I mean, those are 2 examples over a 20-year span, but there are more examples. One was at CrossFit Games, running a CrossFit kids competition event, and it got very hot, unexpectedly hot, about 20 degrees hotter than they had said that it was going to be in the weather reports. And the mats on the ground were black. And we had kids doing handstand walks. And immediately we realized it was too hot. We had to change handstand walks. So we started pouring water. Water didn't cool it enough. Somebody had to run over to the Reebok store and get gloves for all of the kids so that they could safely complete the handstand walks. So just thinking through possible? What's my backup plan? And is there even a team to implement a backup plan if things should go wrong? Also, something that came up when I did some research, Googling camps and what parents want and things, is that sometimes parents want to come see it before the day one. They want to see, what does the space look like? And the suggestion was now virtual tours. If there's any way you can give, do a little video and put it on whatever marketing that you have. Here's where we're going to do it. That might be helpful for parents to see the space without having to come visit. Time frame. We're going to talk about this in models. There are so many different time frames and choices of how you can do it. Partial days, full days. Obviously, that then affects your staffing, your programming, their engagement level. So, and also ties into the age. So defining the ages that you want to work with, the younger they are, attention is going to be very different than the older they are, but then we have other concerns when we get here also for length. So we'll talk about that there. No one, 0 people in this venue in fitness camps for kids suggested full days. So that's just something I noted. And I think there's probably a reason why. A lot of folks say they've tested different models, and nobody said that full days were working for them. I'd love to hear that they were and how, but that's something to note for now, that it's not suggested by anybody. Check out the local camps that are offered. So Google Sydney area, is that right, Sherry?
Yep, Sydney.
Sydney, Stockholm. What are other people doing in the fitness realm? Many people suggested gymnastics camps as a good high level professional type. And what are they doing? What are their pricing structures? Now we're going to get later to the models in detail. We still want to look at what we need from it, not necessarily just, well, they charge this, we should charge something similar. It's just good to know what they are charging and what you're comparing to. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to use that model. So it also gives you, what are they not saying that I could say that would invite people to come to my camp. Coaches, training, and staffing. Obviously, you guys are on top of this. Make sure they are professional, they're educated. One of the things that comes up when we talk about what parents want is they want to know that the staff has been vetted for safety. They want to know, and that would be here, that would be what we call background checks. In your locations, I know that's a little different for every country, but they want to know that staff has been vetted, that they're educated, and that they feel safe, that their children are going to be safe. We recommend in the kids age range, and Jeff will speak to when we talk about teens or preteens, for a camp scenario that you have one coach per 6 to 10 kids. And I say 6 to 10 depending on experience. So if you have an inexperienced coach, 6, 8-year-olds is going to be intense. But if you have an experienced coach, you can really go higher than the 10 for sure. So that's just a range, but I would slide that scale according to the experience of the coach. Registration. The way that people are now, everybody wants things as simple as possible. So think about something where the people can register for the camp on a one-step. I filled out a form, I hit a button, I paid for it in the simplest manner. We want ease of use. People want to be able to do things as simply as possible. And we're finding that's just more and more true across the board with any kind of transaction. So your registration should be easy, but know what your cap numbers are before you start registering people, and know what your goals are. And we'll get, again, everything sort of ties in. But so before you start registration, know that number. As far as registration, we also have some other things I have to add here before we talk about these a little more. So you want to decide this process, this one-step process, and have it in place early. Okay, so we want that one-step process. Then we want standard operating procedures in place. So that would be having your coaching staff know what your rules are for behavior. One of the people we talked to about the models that we'll talk about later said, I make sure my coaches know exactly what my behavior expectations are, and that if children don't behave in the way that we've outlined, they get asked to leave and the parents don't get a refund. And he has a whole process about behavior expectations leading to being expelled from the camp if necessary. So standard operating procedures based on behavior. What will discipline look like? If you need to discipline a child, what will that look like? Everybody needs to be on the same page so that there are no surprises either for the owner or the head coach or the parents. We want to make sure we're solid on all those things. And then there needs to be an emergency card. What do we do if there's an emergency for each child? So parents need to fill out, along with a waiver, whatever sort of waiver you have. It needs to include photographs and video and media. What are the emergency procedures? Who do you contact? You want to have a few numbers. Who will pick up and drop off the child? Who's allowed to pick up and drop off the child? And any kind of first aid things that you might need to know about that child specifically, and also have a first aid policy, in a kit, and everybody knows where it is, and so forth and so on. So part of this, before you get the registration set up in that one step, we need these things planned out, because at this point is where you want them to fill out emergency forms and so forth, right? And you may want to outline, our behavior standards are X, clear communication. So I'm gonna say that. And that gets to social media and direct communication with kids. We really don't recommend texting children. If you find that you need to, copy the parent. The parent is always in the loop, so that there's no communication that occurs without. And this is probably, I'm telling you things I'm just reminding you that we need to apply it to the camp scenario as well. And one more thing, in the standard operating procedures that the coaches need, you need a plan for creepy person showed up to watch the camp. We've had creepy people show up in our gym. We've had creepy people show up at events, and we had to have a plan. How are the coaches going to deal with this? Are they just going to stop doing what they're doing? Are they going to move the kids to another area?
I'm the standard operating procedure.
I thought I'm the creepy person. I
am we are now instituting Jeff.
Is there a designated individual who's going to deal with the creepy person? And how do we deal with them? We just nicely ask them to leave. Hey, you're not a parent. You're not associated with this in any way. We need you to leave. Do we have a plan that escalates if things escalate? So I'm just, unfortunately, the way the world is, just have to think it through and then tell your coaches what the plan is. Okay, so we're through this first gnarly section. Questions or discussion on any of that, things you want to add or ask about?
I have done a fair few camps with young kids before I was doing teenagers, when I did a younger group. And yeah, I did the half day and the full day, but at that stage I was doing more games and sports and like sort of fun stuff. So the full day would work, and I would get, some of them would want that because they were still working, but I was getting ready to do a teenager program, and I did this 3-hour block of, I don't know, I did not think it through, but I killed these poor kids. And I was hoping they would join my program, but I just did so many workouts and they were annihilated. Like, it was just so silly. So yeah, it was funny that you said that. I'm like, yeah, fitness is a totally different thing, because I was interested to see or hear like how we're putting together in regards to fitness and brand X and all that versus of course, going to play games and stuff like that as well, make it fun. But yeah, I haven't done, since I've been doing the teenagers, I've only done like a 1 hour fun outdoor session. And you know, if you get them to bring a friend, the friend can barely make it through that because it's not, they've never really done it before.
Yeah, well,
We'll talk
Yeah.
about
definitely supports what I heard.
Yep.
And being within the fitness realm and what we did. And we'll talk about that later, what I'm calling move rest, but that's more like body, mind. You know,
Yep.
some more, you're not moving so much, but you're still in the fitness realm somehow, or activity or
Yep.
playing a game or something, but not
and we'll
movement heavy.
hit the teams and
Yeah.
at the end of it.
Jeff's going to address what the differences are in the teen section, sort of after we go through all these basic things. But
Yeah,
So
and
I have
I
a
had
question.
that experience too. Yeah, I'll go, Chris.
No, sorry. Yeah. So how many days do you usually do the camps for? Is it just a 1 day thing, or do you do like 4 days or 2 days? Because we've done several days.
are you asking Sherry? You're asking what?
All of you.
I'll
For
let
me, I only ever did like you could book in for 3 days if you wanted. I ran 3 days in a row, and you could book in for 3 days, but most families just booked in for 1 day.
Okay. Yeah.
But
we
it was yeah.
actually, when I get to the models, I'm going to discuss 3 very different models that worked for 3 very different parts of the world and different audiences. So it's kind of a look at your audience. And one of the very common themes I got from these 3 participants was test. That you may need to test, like you've done, Sherry. You've tested, and now you know what's workable for your audience, right?
Yeah.
And they said that was really important because you may think that people want 3 days, they want to send their kids off for 3 days a week, but then it might not be. It might be more than the kid is engaged with. But there are also going to be communities. I know here in the U.S., the East Coast, everybody tries to send their kids off for the largest amount of time possible for the summer. It's horrible, but it's really true. They want them 5 days a week for 6 weeks. So it's just different everywhere. So testing that is important. And maybe if you survey your current athletes or your current class members and their parents, they'll give you an idea what your general area might be select for.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on this section? And I know, like I said, everything kind of weaves into the next, but we can always come back if there are.
Oh, and the ratio one, I suppose that I would sometimes have done bigger ratios, but I did find testing and measuring and asking the coaches and seeing how I felt and working on the kids' behavior in general. 1 to 12 was the absolute maximum I could go to, that everybody got to the end of the day happy as, and we didn't have behavioral problems and things like that. So yeah, I really did look at that over the years and went, oh, okay. And then you obviously sometimes the numbers go a bit out because if someone's going to enroll, you're like, yay, you want to meet as many people as you can in a holiday program to hope that they join you later on. But yeah, I can imagine with the fitness, even that smaller ratio would work even better. Yeah.
That is also super age related. The younger they are, the more attention and guidance they need. And also the one-to-one relationship is a little more important to the little ones, right?
Yep.
So it makes a difference in their engagement with you. So it is a sliding scale, but I would definitely agree that 12 is the max.
Yeah.
So, all right. So for goals, we're always talking about what is best for kids, because that's where we live. Everything we're doing, we're thinking, what's the optimal thing we can do for kids? But that only works in the camp scenario if we also do what is best for the owner. So,
Yeah.
and that may be the coach in some instances, and it may not be, but we have to look at what the owner of the goals is. The owner of the gym's goals will be, as well as doing our best for the kids. Otherwise, we won't succeed. We can have happy kids, but an unhappy owner is never going to run this again. Never going to create a successful camp model unless it somehow meets their goals. So what are the goals of the owner? Ask the owner if you are not the owner yourself. Find out what they want from it and make sure that you're hitting those things and that you agree on how it happens. Defining the customer. Now, what I mean by that is with adults, pretty obvious, the customer is the adult. When we talk about kids, the customer is also the parent or two parents, sometimes a sibling, sometimes a grandparent or two gets involved, sometimes an aunt or uncle shows up to drop off the child, right? So I've just mentioned a potential pool of 6 people that during these several weeks or whatever that you're running this camp, you might interact with for this one child. So that you can think of as your marketing team. If you get all those people happy and excited about what you're doing for that child, you've got a team of people out there that are going to promote you. So I think people sometimes feel scared about the fact that there's so many customers for every one child, or potentially so many customers for every one child. But in fact, it's a great thing. It means you have more marketers. So really make use of that. Marketing language, I've talked about this. We did a whole seminar on the use of specific language to infer professionalism and value and the kinds of things that people put weight into. So you can call it tuition instead of the fee, and it speaks to something that seems to have more value to people if you use certain language. Also, positive language for sure. Is there something you wanted to say?
No. You're doing great.
I'll look at my notes. So for most people, the ultimate goal is to have the child register for classes or for the next holiday camp, right? We don't want them to disappear. We want them to come back. So we want to have a plan in the marketing where at what point do we pitch them on the next step? So as an example, they're there with us for 2 weeks or 3 days a week. When do we start talking about next holiday camp or signing up for our regular classes? Have a plan for when that's going to be. Don't wait till it's over and they've left on that high note and gone home for a week or two to pitch them. Start to talk to them and the parents during their highest moment of engagement. What parents want to hear, and I'm going to, when we go over the models, I'm going to get exactly what these 3 different places talk to us about what parents want to hear. Another way to find out what parents want to hear is I went and Googled a whole bunch of things on this, what do parents want to hear about summer camps? Just put that in Google string, right? All kinds of answers, all kinds of articles, but there's a lot of consistency and general recommendations about promoting camps. One of the things that was mentioned very often was safety. Parents wanted to know their kids were going to be safe. They wanted to know they were going to enjoy it. And also Googling, how do you fill up a summer camp? What are the average prices? Now I found that for the US, and I'm not even going to say it because it doesn't make sense to tell you here unless you want me to. There's also an organization called here, but I'm sure each of your countries have organizations that are specifically for summer camps. So here it's called ACA, the American Camping Association. You can list your camp with them. It's like free advertising. So if you have that type of organization in the country or region that you're in, maybe your city has an organization, summer camps for kids that you can connect with, that helps you with getting the word out. They may have social media that you can post to or groups. The other thing in the marketing realm is we tend to, as coaches, get very detailed about what we're doing actually with the kids, right? We want to give them physical literacy, and we want to make sure that they have all the tools to move well through life and engage and be motivated and all those things. And sometimes that means nothing to a parent looking for, I want my kid to have fun, I want them to be busy all day, and I want professionals to do it. Like, those are what they're looking for, very concrete things. And we want to talk about the things that we're all, really excited about doing for kids, but they're not so much usually into those details, as far as we can tell by doing the research on it. They really want to know broader things. So try and pull back on the very detailed kind of marketing on exactly what you're doing, and use broader language to appeal to more people. Still do the beautiful work you do, just using it, and use the broader language to describe it. So doing all of these things leads to your reputation, and your reputation is going to feed back to what is best for the owner. Because if we enhance the reputation of the gym and the location through this camp, we're going to make the owner happy. They're going to hear more from the locals about what a great job you did, and how everything worked out so well. And that's going to lead to, let's do more camps and more people signing up. And obviously thinking about how reputation happens. It's usually word of mouth, right? People talk to other people, kids talk to their friends, parents talk to parents. So think about that, and know what you're going to say when somebody asks you, the elevator speech for the camp. We all do practice the elevator speech for our program, but have an elevator speech for your camp. How am I going to explain it in those broad general terms that are going to draw people in and parents in, so I can do the beautiful work I do? Any questions on this goal section or discussion points?
I really liked and had never thought of it as the kid having like 5 or 6 touch points or family members, and that they're our marketing strategy. I never really thought of it that way. So that is a really good, is such a great way to think about it. If you have kids that have separated parents, one books them in and says, but please take the money off the other one. You're like, oh, far out.
Definitely have that.
Okay.
Chase him, chase her.
Oh my God. I'm like, no, you pay me, you chase him. I'm not chasing him. But yeah, it actually makes it better, because you've got the 2 people. If you're communicating with them both, you're like, oh shit, I just make them both love the program and how it all works, as well as the kid. And then hopefully they're both telling people.
And so, if you have a big family, even if the other kids aren't coming this year, if they're looking and saying, hey, Mom, I want to come next year or next session, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very important. Always know the sibling's name. Very important.
Okay, so reputation also is going to really, really be described by your coach selection. Who you have running this thing matters. So the professionalism of those coaches. So their training, their demeanor. Do they act like we've had stories of young coaches, maybe 19 or 20, they've done the training, but their maturity level is perhaps different than the maturity level of somebody maybe 5 years older. And it's not a black and white thing. It's just something to be aware of, that sometimes a younger coach may not understand what a parent would perceive as professional behavior with their children. So, and that's going to be different in different environments and different cultures. So I can't even say this, and this. I can just say, think about the perception and how they behave and how they interrelate with kids. We have had coaches or owners come to us saying, hey, my coach is doing this thing with the kids, and I feel like that was awkward, but they think it's fine. And we've had discussions about it. And it's just maturity. It's just understanding other people's perceptions, not just sort of going with what they think at the moment. So selecting that coach for obviously their training, their acumen with kids, how do they relate to kids? Are they going to be tired and complaining after 3 hours? Are they somebody who has endless energy? Are they going to be, oh, I need a break? Are they going to walk off during a time when you really need them? It really has to be somebody who's willing to put whatever time in with high energy and also very aware of what your standard operating procedures are and how you want it to go. So professionalism also, just an idea here, but for camps, if you have everybody wearing the same colored shirt or the team shirt or something like that, it makes it a lot easier for the kids and the parents to define who they need to communicate with.
Yeah.
Atmosphere. So again, that's very dependent on what ages we're talking about, but think through your atmosphere, meaning age appropriate, clear expectations are communicated to the kids and positive language is used. Now we're finally going to get to programming. So I say move, rest, and what I mean is in moving, we're doing stuff with our body. It might even be slow, but we have moving intervals and we have resting intervals. And I don't mean that in like 1 minute, 2 minute, I mean it in whatever we've got blocked, right? So maybe for 10 or 15 minutes, we're playing a game. Then a resting interval might be stretching, mobility. Then for 10 or 15 minutes, we're focusing on a movement. We're working on practicing exactly what that should look like. Then a resting interval might be, we're going to go draw in chalk what that movement is that we just practiced. And then you get the idea. So there's calm things that we can do within our world of all the things we do with the kids. And then there's movement oriented things. Make sure that you think that through in how much they end up moving. You want to obviously good active amount of movement without knocking them out. And also have them understand that there are fitness related activities, thinking activities, I'm gonna add cross curricular so I don't forget. That we can use. So when I say cross curricular, we do have some, we call them lesson plans, cross curricular lesson plans. I think they are.
Yeah.
There's about 10 workout games that where we use educational content. So say you're playing limbo, just limbo with a stick, right? And we have the kids come up and they do 1 push-up and they spin twice and then they answer a math question and it's their own math question. So they can make it up. 4 times 4 is 16. They get it right, they go under. So we can do things to slow down. So what that does is they move, they think, it also slows down the movement a little because of the focus time. But it also can add something to the programming. Jeff had a game that he played quite a bit with the memory game with cards. So we lay out a deck of cards and the kids, I think all the kids are in a squat or plank position while the other child focuses. Can you explain it?
Yeah, let's say the workout was run 200 meters, come back in, do 10 burpees. That earned you a turn, 2 turns or cards turnover in the decks for the memory. Thank you for putting me on the spot right here. So you don't get to start your next round until you've gotten a pair. So you would step back in line. You had to do 10 squats to earn another pick at the card. So everybody else coming in, they're turning the cards over, you're watching them, you do your 10 squats, you go up, and if you get a pair, you put them aside and then you would go do another round and come back in and start it all over, and the person who got the most cards obviously won. But it slowed the workout down quite a bit.
It slowed it down. So as well as movement and rest, you can kind of have those medium type movement scenarios where they're still working on the things you want them to work on, but it slows it down a little, right? Not everything has to be go kill it kind of workouts. And knowing who you are running the programs, I feel like the programming is the thing that Brand X training centers need least. You're good at that. That's the thing that there's confidence in how to do that. I think to make these camps successful, it's these other things that we're needing to think through to be able to put this out there in the best possible way to get more people to come and come back, enhance the reputations, right? So remember, for the younger side, people actually all the way up to adults, 10-minute chunks. People just check out after 10 minutes. So try not to make anything too extensive. If it's got to be 30 minutes, 40 minutes, throw in something every 10 minutes, something colorful, something to change their mindset, get up, spin around, anything like that, so that we can make sure that they stay engaged. One of the recommendations in the models, which we're about to get to, was to use a local celebrity and a local sports figure, or somebody that was known in your area for something that the kids would like. In this case, it was a rugby coach or a track and field specialist that people knew about. And what they did was say, they're going to come in and they're going to talk to you about, so there's a quiet, we're just having discussions, and then we're going to move. So that takes up a little bit of time. It adds some value to the camp. And then the other idea there was partnering with a local yoga studio or a kids activity group, so that could be placed in there and considered rest, or not high intensity hard work, but movement that's going to be less taxing. You get the idea. So then we get to outcomes. We want happy kids and we want happy parents. So we have to know what parents want. I think we're all pretty good at knowing what those kids want, what's going to make them happy now, right?
Yeah.
So we've got that. So really this outcome focus is going to be really needing this. So do a little local research on that. Find out what people in your area are saying that people in your area want, parents. I'm going to erase this so we can move to the models. Do you guys have what you need down from this board?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about preteens
No,
teams?
let's get through the models.
I just have a quick question about the programming again that we just discussed. When it comes to, say, for example, if you're going to do like a 3-day a week, would you kind of just sort of do like almost like a repeat each day? Would you sort of just do like maybe, since you're doing like 10-minute intervals, or would you sort of maybe do a different theme for each day?
I think both of those are legitimate ideas. I think that both can work if done well.
Yeah.
I would definitely say you want to repeat basic movements.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't go, today's a squat, tomorrow's the press. Something like that might be too much for kids to feel confidence and mastery. So I might go, today's the squat, tomorrow's the squat again, and then we'll introduce something else, or in our language, movement skills first that lead to those movements.
How about following a theme? So today was a squat. Tomorrow we're going to use the squat to learn to jump, and then we're going to do something else. So like, wow. And so by the time they get to their third days, they're going like, wow, I understand why the squat's important, and I understand how I'm going to do different things.
So clear progression. Yeah.
Progressive is definitely a good idea.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I found as well is, say I had only 10 kids that came for all 3 days of a program, but the other 70 kids were only there for 1 day, I found if I did the exact same program, because on Tuesday I've got 80 kids, but 70, it's their first time. And then on the next day I've got 80 kids, but 70, it's their first time. I could repeat the program, no worries. But by day 3, those 10 that were repeating it started to have bad behavior because it was identical. So I found it really, really hard to work out. You know, it's almost like I needed 2 completely different camps, one for the like 3-day people and one for the one, but
I wonder if
I
you
never
could,
was really able to do that.
given that environment, what if you had 2 classes and you did day 1, everything, day 2, something else, we repeat day 1 on the 3rd day. And,
Yeah,
you know, that might work.
that would work better. Yeah.
Just a thought of what you were talking about, I can't get out of my head, so I'll say it. Also, what you're talking about with that 70 and 10 is then you've got to repeat low skill stuff over and over and over.
Yeah.
So those 10 aren't getting the progression that you really might want to see
Yeah.
to get them to go, I want to keep coming, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think there's a
So you could also mix
lot of
up the low
layers to
skill
that.
stuff. You could go, so just as an aside, you can go burpee, high skill movement is squat, low skill movement is burpee, high skill movement is squat, low skill movement is shuttle runs, high skill movement is squat, low skill movement mountain climbers or step ups or something like that. So you're
repeating, but
you're
not
repeating
exactly.
the high skill movement in different ways. First day we do it tempo, second day we do volume, third day we do low volume, high speed, something like that.
So
Nobody wants to squat 3 days in a row, by the way. Walking around and my legs are killing me today.
three different models here, 3 different countries. And 3 really different approaches. So I will tell you what their pricing was and you can kind of get a feel for it. But I don't want to say who it is because their pricing models are a little bit different and I don't want to put anybody on the spot. But the first one, he was doing 2 days a week, just 1 hour for 8 weeks. Second one, 5 times a week for 4 hours, 1 solid week. Third one, 3 times a week, 3 hours, 1 to 2 weeks for different holiday periods. Now the models financially, he was doing 20 kids, $20 an hour. So he's got $400 for this week by 8 weeks.
2 times a week.
Sorry,
So that's $800 a week.
sorry. That's a big mistake. 5 times a week, 4 hours, 1 week. This is $100 a week,
But you're making it up in volume.
but he's making it up in volume. At 20 kids, it is $100. So you have $2,000 for the week. This is different, obviously a really different hourly rate and a different way of figuring it. We'll get to how they looked at profit margin and that's the thing later. But 3 times a week, this was, if you just wanted to come once, you could pay 75. If you wanted to come to all 3, you could do it for 200. So it's a bit of a discount to come for all 3 days. So that's a little like what you're talking about, Sherry, where somebody would pick and choose how many days they come. I think that does make programming harder, as we've discussed. But this model 200 a week. So at 20 kids, that's 4,000 a week. Or potentially, right? So how they came up with their pricing models. The first model, he says the pricing was based on what he valued his time to be worth. Plus, he's got to have a coach, at least one coach for his model of 20 kids. So, and then costs. So he's figuring time and costs. Now, I happen to know this was out on a field. So then there's no overhead administration. What does it cost to keep my gym open per day? That whole thing not going on when you're doing an outside on a field that you don't have to pay for type scenario. So that does change a little bit since there's no overhead cost. This profit margin is going to be higher, just one coach. And then if he does snacks or he has to have some kind of event insurance or that kind of thing, then yes, that's going to add in, right? The second one, now that is a gym where administrative costs have to be taken into consideration. And honestly, I was really surprised at how low this was. Because if I figure this hourly, I think this is $5 an hour per kid or something.
Yeah.
It's not enough.
No.
But this is somebody who's very successful. Very successful, very full
Maybe
program.
looking at his week as a loss leader, as I
Yeah.
bring kids in.
You may be looking at as a loss leader. We had some
Yeah, like-
fourth conversation. I asked him some questions, but it was, I got some of them answered. So also, I think with this model, if he said he took this from the area and what other programs that he thought were very similar in structure and professionalism and amount of education required and all those things. He took the pricing from what they were charging. So I'm not sure that he worked it in the other direction. You know, what does it cost me? But he did say the cost of wages that he pays out can be no more than half of what he takes in. That's one of the things that he used. And remember, these are all successful camps out of very successful gyms. This is the most business-oriented person of this group. And her 3 times a week, 3 hours for 1 to 2 weeks, she says, pricing is based on the number of coaches, administrative costs, that's you, plus snacks, drinks, lunches, overhead hourly cost to have the gym open. And everybody should know that, right? What does it cost? Put all your costs together and divide it by the number of days and what you pay each month. And each day it costs, I'm trying to remember at Brand X, it was something close to $50 a day or something to keep that open, right?
I don't remember.
Anyway, it's expensive. It usually comes up much higher than you expect it to be when you figure that out. And then you want to make sure that you're covering that, right? So she was very careful to do that. Know what your break-even registration numbers are. That was something nobody else said. So I need at least X number of kids not to lose money on the camp. So I'm only going to run it if I get X number of kids.
Yep.
So know the break-even registration numbers, and then not below ever, she says, 35% profit margin. She also says, this is now a very successful source of income every school holiday. Very successful. She was happy with how it turned out. And she tried a lot of different models. She did a lot of testing, and that's what she came out with. Any questions just based on these different models and the pricing? Because I'm going to go to different things, answers they got on some different questions. No? You can still ask any questions at any time.
Yeah.
Yeah. The last one is pretty similar to what we do.
This one?
Yeah, we do, but we do 4 days and we do 2.5 hours. We do for 1 week.
It's similar.
Yeah.
And we charge, and we've got stacks there too.
And you figure out your,
Yeah, we charge
Break
about
even
1,190 crowns, which is, what is that? It kind of depends. So that will be a little bit less than that. But then the dollar is pretty strong right now. So yeah, so we're probably charging maybe like $160.
mhm. So that's
Somewhere
Real-
there.
close. It's a
Yeah.
little less time. So then maybe your coach time might go down slightly by that half hour a day.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then,
We
4 days, did you say?
do it for 4 days.
And well attended?
Yeah, it could be anywhere from 20 up to 50 kids.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. 20 to 50. That's good.
And that's it. If you've got the 50 kids, you just have more coaches and you just got to have the space that
Yeah.
suits that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll schedule like a week before. So yeah, so I could do it from I'll have, if I only have 10 kids, I'll still have a profit, because I'll get an hourly revenue of about 800, about $100, or just under, about $100 per hour per floor, per training floor. So that will kind of like be a little bit of a profit, but it won't be a net profit of 50%, which I do want to have. I want a net of 50%.
And our Model 3 said nothing below 35, but she's looking for 50.
Yeah, that's cool. Like all same as what Chris said, if I ran a holiday program, it was all about the business numbers first. I knew my break-even numbers, or otherwise I wouldn't run it, but I never ever thought of I need a profit margin of a certain percentage. So that's a real awesome addition for me to think about, because you do put a lot of time and energy into a holiday program because it's a bit of a fun special event. And I never really, I mean, I always made a profit, otherwise I wouldn't have run it. But I think having that margin going, I'm actually really happy.
Yeah.
Like, and then hopefully some people join as well.
I mean, you want the kids to be happy and come back. And in some sense, at the beginning, it can be a loss leader because of that. But then if you're not happy because you're not making enough out of all this massive effort, that'll play out in some other way. So I think it is important to think about that. So let's talk about for each of these what the relevant marketing that each of these programs said they used. For number 1, he said absolutely word of mouth was king. Also, number 2, word of mouth was the biggest thing. Now, they also adding to that on number 1, word of mouth, he used signs at his gym, even though he's doing this on a field. Had signs at the gym, signs at a school, works at a school, and he gave discounts for existing members. So you might have to figure that into the profit margin and everything if you're going to do that. That's an option, it's not a necessity. And then second model here, he said he used word of mouth and then some Facebook and Instagram, social media, but not leveraging any ad payment, just using social media. The third program, she said she used her email database. She has about 2,000 people in an email database. She runs programs at local schools, went to the local schools and let them know about it, and did paid Facebook, Google ads, Facebook and Google ads. So 3 different methods. But what I thought was really important to remember was how key word of mouth was in all cases. And the third one I didn't say. She did say word of mouth was important, and she's the one who talked about reputation and having the right coaches. because she said early on she'd made the mistake of putting a coach in there that wasn't optimal. So that changed what she had to do to overcome that. And so she felt that was very important, that that word of mouth about how that played out with the parents was positive. So that's it. Those are the three. Am I going too long? What time are we?
No, I got another meeting in an hour.
Okay.
So you can continue to talk for an hour.
No, you guys, let's go down. Let's do 10 burpees.
No,
Yeah.
Okay, so that's basically, that's the relevant marketing that
Mhm.
we had from them. I don't think there was anything more to say about that. Parents, what parents want to know. Now, as I mentioned, I really think it's important to know your local area because it's going to be really different. But what I got back here was they wanted to know the program. He said they want to know the program details. Remember, this is just an hour twice a week. They wanted to know what his background was, how long he'd worked with kids and his qualifications, coach's qualifications. That was very heavy. That's what the parents wanted in his area. Here, the parents wanted to know if the kids were going to learn specific things, gymnastics, weightlifting, fitness. And he said they definitely wanted to hear that the kids were going to learn teamwork through games. And then that they were insured and vetted and safe.
Mm.
And in the third model, the parents, she kept saying, they only wanted to know that the kids had a fun day. She said, no matter what I tell them and the detail and what we're actually doing, they want to get their money's worth by having a happy kid return to their home.
Mm.
And she said that was what it all came down to in her situation. So kind of interesting. What it does sound like it's slightly different in different places. So I think it's worth digging into your locality. So did we cover all of these things? Okay, and then special tips that each program gave back to us. I just said, give me your best tips. So in this case, he said, have control of the program plan, have a structure and clearly communicate on behavior and safety. Now that's both to your coaches and to the kids. When they come in, they need to know the rules. We can't just, hey, everything, we're starting with so much fun that everybody's in this high energy level. And now we're going to say what the rules are, start with the rules so that they know. In the second case, talk to kids about goals and set daily challenges for home. I thought that was an interesting little twist. So go home and do this thing and we'll talk about it tomorrow. And on the third one, the right coach. Having the right coach will affect all your marketing and all your efforts. It will come back either in a wonderful way or in not so wonderful way. Those were the biggest. Oh, one more other comment, sorry. And that is to separate, this is probably obvious to you, but I'm going to take the time to say it, separate preteens and teens. So if you've got young one, it becomes ridiculously more complex to have a camp, single camp with six-year-olds and 17-year-olds in the same thing, to keep everybody engaged. The work required of the coaches changes, the engagement level changes because of the different things they'll want to do. We really make sure that you have two separate camps, and that's going to lead off to Jeff talking in just a minute. She tested this model. She tested doing outings, the staff, and they went out to have a healthy lunch somewhere. She said her staff was burned out. To do that took so much effort, and for the return, it just wasn't worth it. She did say the local sports celebrities and skills based around seasonal sport were helpful ideas, pairing with other local businesses, and using some educational videos as some of this activity and rest idea. And I think that's it. Let's talk about the teens.
Okay. Talk about the teens. We're going to talk kind of this idea of the Explore, Express, Excel, and Base, Build, Boost, because I think it's important that we kind of have a framework for what we're trying to accomplish. In Explore and Express, kids are learning to move and they're having fun moving, and they're working like in the aerobic energy system. That's what's happening in that Explore and Express group. So you can have a camp that goes an hour, a full day long, because the kids are just having a good time. When you get moved down to the Excel group, kids are actually training. Nobody that's in the Explore group is actually training. They're learning so that when they get to be in the Excel group, they have the tools and the ability then to apply what they've learned to actually lifting weights and actually going fast and hard and all of those things. So Excel kids come to your gym for training, and they're training. And then if you come in and go, okay, now I'm plopping down a 2-hour camp on top of that, you begin to disrupt your training. And so we have to be really cognizant of what we're doing when we start to approach this with the Excel group. If we built a great Excel program, we have a great weightlifting program, we have them coming in and training, and then for 2 or 3 weeks, we destroy that. Are we ever going to build that back up again? Are they ever going to come back in? Are they going to just see that they've kind of just gotten out of the habit of actually training? All of those things can kind of start to affect it. So when we're doing Excel groups, my advice is to start to look at what you're trying to accomplish. I want to bring more kids in, and I want kids who are coming to my class to have fun, maybe bond together more, and maybe bring their friends in. So an Excel class, an Excel camp might look like a lot of, moving from one game to another. So you're playing hillbilly basketball, and then you take a break, and we talk about nutrition, or we do something like that. We have an educational piece, and then we go back and we play another game, another fitness game, and then we come back and we do something else educational wise, and then we come back and do tug of war with teens or something like that. Something that is not disruptive to their standard class. So kind of the first idea is games and model, or games and fun with that kind of group. And when you bring kids in from the outside for that, what we're going to do is the education period is begin to talk maybe about what our Excel program is like, what we're trying to accomplish there, so that we're getting people from, look, we do some of this in this class, but here's what we're trying to accomplish in our day-to-day class. I like the idea of field trips and things like that. So, having the kids come in one day and they're doing games and fun stuff, and then maybe the next day we're going to meet at the rock climbing place, and we're going to maybe have somebody help train us in rock climbing, so and whatever. Or we're going to go on a hike, or we're going to have a beach day. We're going to play tug of war and a lot of beach games while we're there. Things that, especially like if you go to places like the rock climbing place, or you go to a gymnastics studio together, they can learn a skill or something else and have fun doing that, and come back and then apply some of those rules or some of those things at your gym. Another thing we can do is focusing on upcoming sports. So you have a sport here, like let's say we're having football is going to start in middle of summer. So maybe 6 weeks to 8 weeks before the football starts, you can have a camp set up like where get ready for your football season, and you're marketing strictly for kids who are going to be in football. And you're going out talking to the local high schools and getting kids to come in and do it that way. So where do we go from this? Like, we can have one-day camps where you're taking your kids, you're saying, hey, we're going to have a beach day here. It's going to cost this much to go to the beach day, and we're going to have a lot of activities set up for the beach day. Or the rock climbing day. You can do a 3 to 5 day camp where you bracket, Sherry. So you have day 1, you have your program. Day 2, we're going to go to the rock climbing place. Day 3, we're coming back. We're going to do a program here at the gym. And then the camps for to get ready for the sports are 4 to 6 weeks long.
So I have a question just to clarify. We want to be careful of their existing program and their training goals. So really, then you have kind of two options. You can market to your existing clients, and then you have to match that training so it doesn't interfere with your overall goals, or you market outside, and then you can do what kind of
Do
whatever you want
Or
to engage
you,
them.
when you're marketing to both, you're gonna have your kids and other kids. Then what you have to do is build it more around having fun and games and intervals and education things versus stuff that's going to drive your kids who are already lifting and coming in 3 or 4 times a week into overtraining or where it becomes disruptive.
So the do no harm
Yeah.
thing kind of applies there.
Right. So the idea for, especially when we start to get to the Excel group, is in plug and play, we're talking about using our base build boost we use in Movement. We use base build boost as well with setting up a business. All these camps here would start in the boost phase, where we're going out and getting people to come in, and we're marketing to outside of our gym. And the idea for the Excel group is stacking. Like we have a strong Excel program. That needs to start first. So we can have an Excel, then we can do something like we can have a 3-week camp on speed and agility. So I can market that speed and agility camp to my existing Excel members, and I can market that to outside the gym. But everything for the Excel group is based on having that existing program going, running, and being the base of everything else that you're doing outside of market. When we're talking about talking to new programs, we want to have a soft launch to our in the build phase. We're having a soft launch to our regular to our gym members. We build on that. As we go into Boost, we build on that and we begin to bring in kids into that program. We don't want to hinder the growth of that program, because that's where your bread and butter is. By doing speed and agility camp, or let's just as an example. If you're constantly running into, if you are running speed and agility camps, you're constantly have to feed in from the outside. What we want to do is build a program that we can feed all into the camps from the ground up, and then from the outside as well.
But that takes a lot more thought
right.
on not interrupting the ongoing
But what
training.
we're trying to think about, like you think about it as stacking or tiering these things on top of each other. You can come to, or if you're going to do a speed and agility camp, you can come to your existing Excel group and say, you're all, you kids in my varsity group are moving really, really well. I'd like to introduce you to speed and agility. Let's move to that. We're going to do a camp here. It's going to be 2 days a week at this time. After this, I'd love to see you guys in that camp. Then you can also market in from the outside and have kids come in from there. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
One of the things we've found, these kind of extra programs, like I've got a basketball camp coming in, or a baseball camp coming in, or a speed and agility camp, is gyms that have focused on that rather than building their base always are having to market and always are having to bring new clients in. We want to have this base that is our bread and butter, and then feed all of those things up through the system. I told you teams were going to be more thinking about it, and then not. Anybody have any questions?
We went a little over an hour, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
I just want to end
The
with,
sun's coming up for her.
and
Not yet.
saying that-
Friggin' hell. Still dark.
we are going to create a document based on all this stuff we talked about, because it is
Yeah, good.
so much detail. So we'll create a document, we'll post it to that thread in training centers. And feel free to comment or add, and it's a community. So as we get more information, we put it in there. So we want to hear about your successes and things so we can continue to grow and spread the word.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Wonderful.
That was really,
Brilliant.
really good. It was so much more detail than I expected. So it's really been really valuable. And hearing, like, you hear stuff, you go, okay, I do that, but wow, that will really help.
Mm.
Good.
Yeah. So
Glad
really
I agree.
awesome.
I agree.
Thank
Awesome.
you both for coming, and
Sherry, I'll see you this Friday
Yep.
or your Saturday, and Chris, we'll see you next week.
We'll see you
Yep.
next week. Yeah.
Yeah,
Looking forward
and
to it.
we hear that you're picking us up from the airport. Is that?
Yes. Yes.
Well, now I feel a lot of stress about not being late. What if we're late? What if they delay our flight?
I mean, I've got half an
Okay.
hour to the airport. That's fine. Yeah.
Well,
Well, thank you.
okay. Thank you.
Of
Thank you.
course.
But if it's extraordinarily late, we'll be texting you and saying, we'll find
Yeah.
our.
We'll play
Yeah.
it by ear. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
But you guys are going back on the Sunday, right? On the 1st, or are you going back on Monday? Because I thought you wrote the 1st of May. Monday morning. Okay, good.
Did I write 1st of May? I meant.
Yeah, I think you did. Yeah,
Yeah, sorry.
good.
No, it's
That's a
really,
relief.
Make sure we still have room in the hotel. No, what if they went, well, they're going to ask Sunday.
oh no.
We're gonna be sitting in the airport. 24 hours.
You'll be fine, or you'll have to stay with me in that case. It'll be fine.
Well, that's a big mistake. I'll update that email.
Thank you.
Thank you both for coming, and
No, thank you. Thank you.
look forward to seeing you next
Talk to you
week.
soon.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.